In a crowded courtroom, a young boy stood before a judge, ready to decide his future with the foster mom who had raised him for years. No one, not even she, expected the words that came next. With a voice full of emotion, he shared a truth about her that stunned the room into silence. Listen till the end to find out what he revealed that changed everything. Also, let us know where you're listening from. Emma Fields and David Grant, a compassionate couple living in the heart of Portland, Oregon, had opened their home to foster children for years. Their goal was simple: to provide a safe, loving space for kids in need, offering them stability when they needed it most. Their most recent placement was 4-year-old Liam, a quiet boy with dark, wary eyes who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his small shoulders. When Liam first arrived, Emma could tell he was scared. He hardly spoke, clinging to his small suitcase as if it was the only familiar thing in this strange new world. Emma and David tried to make him comfortable, giving him his own room filled with soft toys, books, and a warm bed. Yet for days, Liam barely said a word. The house was quiet, waiting for the moment he might feel safe enough to trust again. But Emma knew that healing took time. She made sure to be there every day, a constant source of warmth and reassurance. And, little by little, Liam began to open up. Emma Fields and David Grant, a compassionate couple living in the Emma took Liam to all the local places kids loved: Forest Park, the Portland Children's Museum, the zoo. At first, he stayed close to her side, holding her hand tightly. But slowly he began to explore, curiosity sparking in his eyes. Emma noticed the small changes, a laugh here, a smile there. Liam was starting to feel at home. They created small routines, cooking dinner together, reading stories before bed, and watching family movies on Friday nights. With each passing day, the walls around Liam's heart began to crack, and Emma caught glimpses of the bright, spirited child hidden underneath his trauma. Yet there was something missing in Liam's heart that even Emma couldn't fill. He spoke longingly of his older brother Jordan, who was now 12 and living in another foster home. Their separation weighed on him, leaving him incomplete. Emma had spent weeks preparing Liam for this day. Emma took Liam to all the local places kids loved. Forest Park. She would watch his face light up every time they talked about Jordan, as he'd eagerly recount memories of his big brother from when they were together. A half-finished jigsaw puzzle, Jordan teaching him how to ride a bike, the sound of Jordan's laugh that made everything feel okay. And now, after months of separation and longing, today was finally the day. They drove to Forest Park in the early morning, the air crisp with the scent of pine and damp earth. Sunlight filtered through the branches, casting a soft green glow over the trail. Emma stole glances at Liam in the rearview mirror, watching as he twisted his hands nervously in his lap. His small face a mix of excitement and apprehension. She reached back, giving his hand a reassuring squeeze, feeling his grip tighten in response. As they parked and walked towards the playground, Emma's heart pounded in time with Liam's quick steps. He clutched her hand so tightly it almost hurt, his eyes scanning the park with a kind of frantic hopefulness. She would watch his face light up every time they talked about Jordan, she could feel his energy buzzing through her hand, like he was a coiled spring, ready to burst forward the moment he saw his brother. Then, from across the playground, she spotted a tall, lanky figure by the swings. Jordan's posture was casual, but his face held an intense focus, his gaze darting back and forth as he searched the crowd. Emma gently released Liam's hand and nodded toward Jordan, but Liam had already seen him. With a soft gasp, Liam's entire face lit up. Before Emma could say a word, he broke into a full sprint, his little legs pumping as fast as they could carry him. She watched as he ran, his arms stretched wide, his voice calling out, "Jordan! Jordan!" The sound was raw and filled with every emotion he'd been holding inside. Jordan looked up, his expression instantly softening. A slow smile spread across his face, and he opened his arms, bracing himself just in time as Liam launched himself forward. They collided in a hug that seemed to fold time and space, their small figures wrapped tightly together as if they were the only two people in the world. She could feel his energy buzzing through her hand, like he was a coiled spring, ready to burst forward. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she watched them. Liam buried his face in his brother's chest, clinging to him as if afraid he might disappear. Jordan's hand rested protectively on the back of Liam's head, and even from a distance, Emma could see tears glistening in his eyes. Jordan was only 12, yet he looked like an older brother and protector, his posture strong and steady. As they held each other, Emma couldn't help but think of all the quiet moments she'd shared with Liam. How he would glance longingly at the door whenever she'd mention Jordan, or how he'd tell her stories in whispers, as if saying them too loudly would break the fragile memories. She had tried to fill his world with love and comfort, but this was something only Jordan could give him, a sense of belonging, of history, of family. Liam finally pulled back, just enough to look up at Jordan's face. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she watched them. Liam buried his face in his brother. He reached up, touching Jordan's cheek, as if making sure he was real, then let out a small laugh, one that seemed to bubble up from the deepest part of him. "Are you taller?" Liam asked, his voice laced with wonder. Jordan chuckled, ruffling Liam's hair. "Maybe a little," he said, his voice teasing but full of warmth. "But you got bigger too, Squirt." They laughed together, and Emma felt her own tears well up, watching them with a bittersweet ache. She hadn't fully understood the depth of their bond until now, seeing them reunited after so much time apart. The boys began talking a mile a minute, their voices overlapping as they shared stories, both too eager to wait their turn. Jordan talked about his school and his friends, while Liam filled him in on all the games he'd played with Emma and David, recounting every detail with wide eyes and animated gestures. Emma let them have their space, staying at a distance but within sight, giving them the freedom to reconnect. She walked a few steps back, breathing in the fresh morning air, a bittersweet ache blooming in her chest. He reached up, touching Jordan's cheek, as if making sure he was real, then let out a small laugh. This was exactly why she decided to set up this meeting, and yet she could feel her own heart tugged in two directions. She wanted Liam to feel loved, secure, and at home, but she knew now that without his brother, that feeling would never be whole. After some time, Liam ran back to her, grabbing her hand and tugging her toward Jordan. "Emma, come meet my brother," she smiled, letting him pull her forward. Jordan looked up, his eyes kind and respectful as he extended his hand. "Hi, Miss Fields," he said, his voice steady but soft. She shook his hand, feeling a surge of pride in how polite and mature he was. "It's nice to finally meet you, Jordan," she said, her voice warm. "I've heard so many great things about you." Jordan gave a shy smile, his cheeks flushing slightly. "Thanks, and thank you for taking care of Liam." Emma felt her heart twist at his words. The gratitude in his voice was both touching and heartbreaking. No 12-year-old should have to thank someone for caring for his little brother. This was exactly why she decided to set up this meeting, and yet she could feel her own. She felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would do everything she could to keep these boys together. The three of them spent the rest of the morning at the park. They played tag, climbed trees, and took pictures, capturing moments they would cherish forever. Watching the boys, Emma knew that this was the family Liam needed, and perhaps the family she needed too. As they were getting ready to leave, Jordan pulled Emma aside, glancing nervously over at Liam, who was busy playing with a fallen branch. "Miss Fields," he began, shuffling his feet, Do you think I could come live with you and Liam?" Emma felt her breath hitch. She had been thinking the same thing, but hearing it from Jordan felt both like a validation and a challenge. She nodded, her voice soft but firm. "I'd like that very much, Jordan. I think it's time we start figuring out how to make that happen." Jordan's face broke into a smile, his eyes bright with relief. She felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would do. Emma knew the road ahead would be difficult, filled with paperwork, meetings, and more waiting. But standing there, with the two brothers reunited, she felt an overwhelming sense of clarity and purpose. This was her family now, and she would do whatever it took to keep them together. As they left the park that day, Liam and Jordan walked hand in hand, laughing and chatting as if they'd never been apart. Emma walked a few paces behind, her heart full, knowing that this was just the beginning of their journey together. And whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a family. Emma and David hadn't planned on fostering another child, especially an older one. But after seeing how much Liam and Jordan meant to each other, Emma felt compelled to bring Jordan into their home. She and David talked long into the night, weighing the challenges of fostering an older child against the clear bond between the brothers. They finally decided to take the leap and invited Jordan to stay with them. Emma knew the road ahead would be difficult, filled with paperwork, meetings, and more waiting. But standing there, with the two, Jordan fit in quickly, forming an easy rapport with both Emma and David. Soon their home was filled with laughter, wrestling matches, and the vibrant energy of two boys who finally felt at ease. But the question lingered in the back of their minds: how long could this arrangement last? The house that once felt a bit too quiet had become a whirlwind of activity and laughter over the past year. Emma and David had grown accustomed to the sounds of Liam's excited chatter and Jordan's laughter echoing through the halls. The brothers had settled into their routines with an ease that made it seem as though they had always been a part of this home. Emma would often find herself pausing in the midst of her daily tasks, simply watching the boys as they played in the backyard or worked on homework together at the kitchen table. It was in these moments that she felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling so deep and profound that it sometimes brought tears to her eyes. They had become a family in every way that mattered. Jordan fit in quickly, forming an easy rapport with both Emma and David. Soon their home was filled with laughter, wrestling matches. Yet, as the seasons changed and the days turned into months, a shadow of uncertainty loomed over their lives. Emma and David had always approached fostering with the hope of reuniting children with their birth families. They believed in the power of second chances and the importance of keeping families together whenever possible. But with Liam and Jordan, reunification was no longer on the horizon. The boys' birth parents had been unable to meet the requirements set by the state, and their parental rights had been terminated. One evening, after tucking the boys into bed, Emma and David sat on the porch swing, the night air cool and the sky dotted with stars. David wrapped an arm around Emma, pulling her close as they swayed gently. The weight of their unspoken thoughts hung between them, and Emma knew it was time to face the conversation they had been dancing around for weeks. "David," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "have you thought about what comes next for us and the boys?" Yet, as the seasons changed and the days, David let out a long breath, his gaze fixed on the darkness beyond their yard. "I think about it all the time, Em. I look at them, and I can't imagine our lives without them anymore. But adoption, it's a big step." Emma nodded, feeling the familiar swirl of emotions in her chest. "It is. It's forever, and it changes everything." David turned to look at her, his eyes searching hers. "Do you think we're ready for that? I mean, we always talked about fostering, about being a temporary home. Adoption was never really part of the plan." Emma felt a pang in her heart, knowing the truth in his words. They had built their lives around fostering, opening their home to children in need, knowing they might only stay for a short while. Adoption had always been a distant possibility, something they had considered but never fully embraced. Now, the reality of it felt both thrilling and terrifying. "I know," she said softly, "but sometimes plans change." David let out a long breath, his gaze fixed on the darkness beyond their yard. "I think about it all the time, Em. I look at maybe this was always meant to be our path, even if we didn't see it coming." David squeezed her hand, his expression softening. "I love those boys, Emma. They've become a part of us. The thought of them leaving, I can't even bear it." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. "Me neither. And I know it's a huge decision, but when I think about our future, I see them in it. I see us as a family, not just for now, but forever." They sat in silence for a long moment, the only sounds the chirping of crickets and the distant rustle of leaves. Emma could feel the weight of their decision settling over them, a choice that would alter the course of their lives. David finally spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Let's do it, Emma. Let's pursue adoption. I know it won't be easy, but I can't imagine not trying. I want to be their dad, not just their foster parent." Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes, a mix of relief and love swelling within her. She leaned into David, resting her head on his shoulder. "I want that too. Maybe this was always meant to be our path, even if we didn't see it coming." David squeezed her hand, his expression softening. "I want to be their mom, in every sense of the word." In the weeks that followed, Emma and David began the long, complex process of adoption. They met with social workers, filled out mountains of paperwork, and attended meetings and training sessions. The process was grueling, filled with questions that dug deep into their lives and motivations. They had to prove, not only to the state but to themselves, that they were ready to make this lifelong commitment. There were moments of doubt, late nights when Emma would lie awake, her mind racing with what-ifs. What if they weren't enough? What if the boys resented them later on for taking them away from any chance of returning to their birth family? What if they failed at this? the most important job they'd ever taken on. David was her rock during those times, holding her close and reassuring her with quiet confidence. "We're doing the right thing," he would say. "I can feel it. We love them and they love us." The day of the adoption hearing arrived and nerves were running high. In the weeks that followed, Emma and David sat side by side in the courthouse, holding hands tightly as they waited for the judge. Liam and Jordan were quiet, their faces tense with anticipation. Emma felt her heart pound as she thought of all they had been through together, wondering if this was the moment they would finally become a family forever. Finally, the judge entered the room, and the proceedings began. Emma listened intently as the case was reviewed, her hand gripping David's as the judge paused before making the final decision. Then the judge turned to Jordan, asking if he had anything to say. Jordan took a deep breath and looked up at the judge, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Your Honor, I just want to say that they love us. Liam and I have finally found a family here. I want to stay with them, and I want them to be my family forever." A hush fell over the room as Jordan's words sank in, followed by a wave of emotion that washed over everyone present. The judge smiled, visibly moved. Emma and David sat side by side in the courthouse. "I think we've heard all we need to," she said, her voice warm and full of understanding. "It's clear to me that these boys have found a loving home with you, Emma and David. I'm happy to announce that the adoption is granted." The words hung in the air, and for a heartbeat, everything was still. Emma felt a weight lift from her heart, a relief so profound it felt like a physical release. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, her hands trembling as she reached for David's. Tears of joy filled her eyes, and this time she let them fall. As soon as the words registered, Liam let out a delighted squeal, running to Emma and David, his little arms wrapping around their waists in a fierce hug. Jordan stood beside them, his face a mixture of joy and disbelief, as if he couldn't quite believe this was real. Emma reached out and pulled him into the embrace, holding both boys tightly. Her heart swelled, her love for them so fierce it was almost overwhelming. "I think we've heard all we need to," she said, her voice warm and full of understanding. "It's clear to me that They walked out of the courthouse hand in hand, their faces lit with smiles and their hearts full. The world outside seemed brighter, the air lighter, as if they had been given a fresh start. David scooped Liam up and twirled him around, both of them laughing, while Emma wrapped her arm around Jordan, pulling him close. They were a family now, not bound by blood, but by something far stronger, love and commitment. The boys laughed and ran ahead, giddy with excitement. David turned to Emma, his eyes bright with emotion, and pulled her into a hug. "We did it," he whispered, his voice choked with happiness. "We really did it." Emma nodded, tears still glistening on her cheeks. "They're ours," she whispered back. "They're really ours." As they walked to the car, Jordan glanced back, his face filled with an unfamiliar look, one of hope and contentment. He gave Emma a small, grateful smile, and she felt her heart melt. She knew that this was just the beginning of their journey as a family. They walked out of the courthouse hand in hand, their faces lit. There would be challenges ahead, adjustments to make, and countless moments of growth and learning. But they would face it all together. Back home, they celebrated with a simple dinner and a cake decorated with the words, "Welcome home." Emma watched as the boys laughed and played, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. She had waited her whole life to feel this way, and now, finally, her family was complete. That night, as she tucked the boys into bed, Liam reached out, grabbing her hand. "Mom," he whispered, his voice filled with awe. "We're a family now, right?" Emma felt her heart swell, tears threatening to fall once more. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice full of love. "We're a family, forever." As she turned off the light and closed the door, Emma knew that her life had changed in ways she could never have anticipated. She was no longer just a foster mom or a caretaker. She was their mother, and they were her sons. And for the first time in her life, everything felt exactly as it should be. There would be challenges ahead, adjustments to make, and countless moments of growth and learning. But they would. Let us know, what do you think of their journey? Would you have made the same choices as the judge or the foster mom? Share your thoughts on this powerful story of family and commitment. Subscribe for more beautiful, heartwarming stories.